Today we're going to talk about hydro dipping and how to screw it up.
So here's our setup. We're talking about hydro dipping today. It's like a painting process, but you do everything with film and actually water. This is a very simple process, although I must admit the first couple times I've tried it, I made a few mistakes. And I think it had a lot to do with the temperature of the water and the amount of activator that I used. Activator is super corrosive, smelly, bad stuff, so do this in a well-ventilated area and make sure that you have like a respirator, because this stuff, instant cancer, so be careful with this stuff. So anyway, the process is you take the film, you cut it out. I'll show you some pictures here. You cut it out, put some tape around the outside and cut slits in the edge, because once you dump the film into the water, it expands a little bit. There's like a cellulose coating on one side and then the activator on the other side. Well, I can't remember what it's called, but it's what you spray the activator on that actually turns the image into essentially floating paint. So when you dip it in there, you gotta be super careful. I like to do it on the floor because if you do it on a table, there's a chance you can bump the table and then you get water on the wrong side of the film and it doesn't adhere as well. So you gotta be careful with that. Like I said, this isn't a hard process, but the first couple times you do it, you'll probably screw it up. They offer speed cars, they call them, and you can dip these speed cars and practice with those. You kind of got to go in the water on an angle and move it forward at the same time. So I'll show you what I mean when I do the first dip here. But other than that, cut the film out, make slits in it, dump it in the water, spray on the activator. The activator that I have actually is in a pint can, so I have to use my compressor. You can actually buy activator in aerosol cans. That's a little bit more expensive, but it works the same. I like the activator in the pint cans just because I have a compressor. You don't necessarily have to have that. The one thing that I will mention in this particular setup is I have a fish tank heater right here, and I've got it set to about 82. I think it's set at about 82 degrees. And what I've done is I've filled this up full of water. It's clean water. It's just regular tap water. There's nothing special about it. And I've actually taken some of the water out, heated it up on the stove, brought it back out here and warmed it up. And right about now we're getting fairly close to the temperature that I want it to be at. So you take a look at this and see how it works out. And I'm going to leave this just the way that it is so you can see how this actually takes place. And I'm going to dip it right here. And let's see how it works out. Right here are the pieces of film that we're going to be using today. And here are the pieces, so you can get a little bit of a close-up look at them before. We're gonna put this film on top of this color, which is a chrome paint. It's not actually chrome, but this is just basically ABS plastic pieces that have been shaped and molded. Basically, they're motorcycle armor. And here's the film, and here's how I've prepped the film. This is with the tape with the paint side up, the cellulose side down. What's really great about this film is you can see somewhere in here, you can see words that are backwards, and that way you know to face it down. Probably the hardest thing about this whole process is determining when to actually dip the product or the piece into the film. It's really hard to tell. And one thing I like to do that kind of helps me out when I put these in here, because these patterns are pretty random, as you can kind of tell right there. But see this little dot right here? I put on the tape so I know which way is up. And I don't mean up like which way the film faces. I mean up which way the piece is going to go on here. So with this particular piece, this is up. So that's the top. So if you turn it directly over, you can see how I have to dip this in there. And that's so you can keep the pattern going the same direction. And all these pieces of film are cut in order. So hopefully when you dip it, you want to keep it close to the edge, so you end up with a similar pattern for each piece. You know what I mean? So it's like, it looks like one dip, but it's not going to be. It's going to be 3 separate dips. The pattern's going to be close, but it's not going to be perfect. This is kind of a tough process, so I just wanted to see the prep work for what I've done. And those are the pieces, and essentially they're just motorcycle gear that's been primed and painted. I have heard you can actually dip over the top of primer and then seal it. I didn't find a primer color that I liked, so I actually painted these with a regular chrome-based paint. I think it was a Krylon spray can. I didn't actually go to the paint store or anything like that. I just went to Walmart and picked up some paint. And like I said, you just kind of organize these in the way that you want to dip them. And I put these little dots on here so I know which way's up when I put it in the film, because like I said, the pattern gets kind of confusing when you drop it in the water. Alright, it's a little bit loud in here, but what we got going on now is the garage door is open a little bit. I have a regular box fan sitting over here. I have my film ready to go, and it's got some slits in it. in the masking tape that you put around the edge. That's to allow for a little bit of expansion. The water is up to temperature. I have my activator ready to go in my compressor, and also have my respirator ready to go. A couple things about safety. Respirator, and when you dip, if you use this method, unplug your tank heater. Nothing better than being electrocuted to death while you're dipping stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on, and I'll do some narration so you can actually hear what's going on later. Well, needless to say, not all attempts at hydro dipping work on the first try. So get used or get accustomed to taking your piece and busting out the Scotch-Brite or sandpaper and refinishing it. I've done this piece now 2 times and I've messed it up both times. I think the main problem was I go a little too fast with the dipping process and it doesn't have a chance to stick to it. So now, as with anything, any kind of paint project or dipping project, preparation and prep work is the most important. So I take my time and I go back through and I really detail these guys out and make the finish or the surface as flat as I can. And then clean it, make sure it's super clean. It's another one of the problems I think that I've experienced is not having a totally clean surface. And the last and probably the most important problem, is keeping the water clean because you end up with little specks of stuff that you don't want in your finish. So there's my tips. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Those little tips about orientation, those help out a lot. And keeping the water clean is probably the #1 thing. So do your best. Try as many times as possible. I'll put some links in where I got some of my materials. And that's it. Sorry we screwed up.